and welcome back to the channel. Here we are at Oulton Park International in the Formula C cars. A couple of days to go left on this one. Nemesis up in the top there, setting a massively amazing sector 2 to get this lap time in, a 32.9, and the only person I'm aware of that's hitting the 32s across all consoles and PC. Managed to get myself up into third place, strong competition from GSR, but anyone hitting a 33 is certainly setting a fantastic lap in my opinion. So let's move on and take a look at the setup. So here we are then looking at the tyres, brakes and the chassis and setting the tyre temperatures. Obviously if you look in the top right hand corner you can see the tyre temperatures when they're hot. We're looking at around the 21 region for the Formula C cars. So just working that out, it's very hard to maintain the temperature in the tyre throughout this lap, and obviously you'll notice that the brakes start to lose temperature as well. So it's only really good for one flying lap at all the best temperatures. Brake pressure, this is very much something that you figure out yourselves as to how hard you like to press your brake and how little locking you can get away with. The brake balance, again, we're just trying to get the car turned in, trying to get maximum out of the braking pressure and just maybe get some assistance from the brake as we turn into some of the corners. Now the front and the rear downforce, this is a really, it's a strange one for me on this one because it doesn't really affect the top speed of the car hugely. Now I say that because I managed to set, I set a 133.2 to get where I am. Now if I crank this all the way up to, let's say around the 18 mark at the front and 21 at the rear, I think I had it down at 16, I've still managed to set a 133.3 with the downforce set higher. But you start to take the downforce down and it really does suffer the lap. Obviously you need to try and keep the balance. We always want a little bit more at the rear for this setup. But this is something you can really adjust with the setup that I've got. And you don't really need to change very much. Again, with the longitudinal weight bias, if you're struggling to get front end grip and the car's not turning in very well, I'd certainly recommend moving this forward a little bit. But with it set around here, it just gives a happy medium. You're always trying to find a balance in the car, and moving it a little bit more rearward, for me, just starts to step the rear end out quite a bit. And if you can handle that, that's brilliant, but you need to be a little bit more tentative. But it could assist in the acceleration zones, having that more weight on the rear of the car. Moving to the suspension, the caster, I've got this set as high as it goes. It does make the steering a little bit heavier. The cambers, we're trying to run as little camber as possible so we can assist in the acceleration phase of the car. Front end's as low as it's going to go and fairly soft on the front springs. I think these could adjust, just a few clicks down the way. Again, the camber at the rear. For my fastest lap, I've got these set down at 1.7, but I've just been trying them out at 2.1 or 2.0. It really does assist in that last corner, and I'll just explain a little bit about that as we get further into the drive around the lap. As you can see, the ride height at the rear is set slightly higher. Obviously we're trying to get that rake angle on the car so that the rear of the car, the diffuser and everything's working better, and it also assists in the rear wing. Softer springs at the rear, obviously we're trying to get more grip, so softening those out. And the steering ratio, I want to bring that down. Obviously I'm using the McLaren F1 GT3 wheel, and I don't really want to be letting go of the wheel. I want to go from full lock to full lock while my hands are staying on the wheel. Toe angle, just trying to get some assistance turning into the corners and just get a bit more positive turning. And again, the anti-roll bar, both front and rear, running fairly soft setups. Moving to the dampers, I haven't adjusted any of the damper settings apart from clicking them down. I think I've done 3 clicks down on everything. I haven't touched the bump transition. I adjusted these hugely on my first ever setup. I changed quite a lot. and then I just scrapped the whole setup, started again from the default setup, and just softened them a little bit. Didn't change any of the bump stops, but it ran. I was quickly into the 133. 133.8 was my first lap, having changed very little on the car. The radiator, obviously we closed that out, and the brake balance, the braking, engine braking, I've just brought this down a little bit. Now you'll notice on my gearing, I'm running quite a high gearing ratio, and I've seen that Nemesis is running a very short gear ratio. He uses all 6 gears, but myself, I'm only using the 5 gears for this track. It does assist in the acceleration phase, but I think I just got so used to using 5 gears, adding that 6 gear just seemed to be a lot of gear changes in certain sections of the track, coming down through 4 gears as opposed to 2. But just something I got used to, but I do think the shorter shift might benefit the lap, to be honest. There's no traction control, so this hasn't been touched. Moving to the differential then. It took quite a little bit of messing around with this one. I have tried it on 8 clutches, which works quite well, but I ended up back on the 4. But the preload, the power ramp and the coast ramp, I think are set quite specifically to allow you to come off the throttle with as little imbalance in the car as possible. Again, Nemesis uses quite a low setting. I think it's around here he uses, but I just find the car oversteers too much. But if you have it with an oversteering car and you can handle that, again, obviously he handles it quite well. But for myself, I feel this just balances things out a little better. So then, let's take a drive around the circuit. So as we come into the lap, you're going to want to practice this section quite heavily, because this is where it's going to rely so much on this last corner and getting it right. And you start the lap, I always start it out in 2nd gear, but if you can manage to take this corner on the last lap in 3rd gear and carry the speed through, I guarantee you'll pick up about 2 to 3 tenths alone just from staying in 3rd gear, but it's very hard to master. So to accelerate up, we'll be up into 5th gear as we approach the braking phase. And the braking phase is just here on the right hand side as we hit this last board, and I can't emphasise how hard it is to get this corner perfect. So we're going to be in 5th gear, and we're just going to take one drop down at this point into 4th gear, a real stab on the brake pedal, and you almost chuck the car in the first section of the corner, and then we sort of open the steering out and then back in again. You're very tentative on keeping the car balanced through this corner, and it really is hard to get right. I must have taken this corner so many times and scrapped the lap, because the exit off this corner is so important to get right. So we're going to be in 4th gear, and you're sort of aiming to possibly clip this inside curb or miss it, but you're wanting to get really close to it, and then straightening the car out on the exit, running the curb if you can, and then we'll be up into 5th gear. Now, as you get, there's a tiny little dip here, and as soon as the car's dipped, you want to just come off the throttle, a little stab of the brake pedal, and then just freewheel. Don't clip any of this curb on the right hand side, but once you've got the full lock on around this sort of angle, you need to maintain that lock. When you know you've got the corner right, you'll just maintain this lock and you'll be full flat on the accelerator heading out of this corner, and you just maintain full lock. If you have to adjust the car in any way through this corner, you might end up clipping the curb, and once you clip the curb, it's just going to send you wide. Another really hard corner to nail, but such an important corner to come off at on full throttle, because it's such a long straight. So in my car, I'm going to be up into 5th gear, and I'm going to stay in 5th gear throughout this corner, flatten the throttle all the way through the corner. Much tighter line than I was there. And if you see just this section of repaired tarmac, just as that finishes, it's the breaking point for me. Or you could choose right on the left hand side there, the orange board. But I'm just going to drop down 1 gear just as I come past here, so I'm in 5th, drop down to 4th, and then drop down to 3rd, nice and slowly, and then drop down to 2nd. We're just going to hug this, and the car just understeers for like a millisecond, and as soon as it's done that, you're going to be burying the throttle all the way out to the side. I'm just going to stop the car at a distance here. You can see where the tarmac changes colour, probably just around the billboard, the first billboard on the left hand side. Now that's going to be my breaking point as it changes colour. Now I'm going to say around here is my first breaking point, and I'm going to be dropping down, going to be in 4th gear, dropping down to 3rd gear, still braking, and then I'm going to drop down to 2nd gear, and I want to have got all my braking done. It's so easy at this speed to see it, but this is sort of your turning point once you've finished all your braking, and you're going to bury the accelerator pedal, and it's almost like you're trying to clip this curb and bring the car straight at that point. Very hard to do. Back on the throttle. Never actually reached 5th gear. Again, as the tarmac changes colour just here, we're going to be braking in a straight line, down to sort of braking hard, and then don't change your gear. Once you've braked a tiny bit, or you're really heavy on the brake pedal, but once you've braked for like a millisecond, then drop the gear, and then again drop the gear. And you want to have got all your braking done in that straight line, because we're going to be off the brake pedal now as we come through here, steadying the car out, and we're going to just try and clip the inside of here to drag the car round and stay as tight on this left side as possible. This is the hardest section on the whole circuit for me, because you want him to be accelerating and you've not got very much rear grip at all. So you're sort of looking to clip this inside curb here, just again to keep you on the straight and narrow, and you're just trying to keep that accelerator buried, but you really are balancing it. Up into 5th gear. I love this corner. I'm just going to take a tiny dip of the pedal, chuck the car in, and lift off, and then back on the throttle. Obviously don't take it like that. And then you're accelerating all the way down here. Your heart's going to be in your mouth as you come to here, because you want to brake down to 3rd, ease off the accelerator, and just really try and balance it through here, stay in 3rd gear. And it's so hard, it's such a hard corner to get right. I don't stay in 3rd gear for my fastest lap, and I lose about 3/10 by not staying in 3rd gear, but the lap had gone so well up to that point. I just really didn't want to risk not getting the lap right. I think I do a 26.5 in my last sector, bearing in mind my best last sector is a 26.1, so you've got 4/10 there already. The second sector, I don't know how Craig manages to get a 34.2, but my best one was a 34.5. I really have no idea how he manages to get a 34.2, but it's phenomenal. It really is. But I kid you not, if you can manage to stay in 3rd gear through that last corner and you don't drop down to 2nd at all, you'll take about 3/10 alone out of that corner. But it is very hard to get right. So I really did want to push with this one to try and get a 32, but yeah, I'm 2/10 away from a 32. Managed to get into 3rd, and I'm just going to leave it at that, because there's so much you can change on the car, and you can even get a 33.8, I reckon, with with very minimal adjustment to the default setup. It really is, you're trying to find tenths just by reducing the tyres spinning up, really, especially through sector 2. Sector 2 is the hardest sector on this circuit as far as I'm concerned. To get that perfect is something special. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. I hope you managed to mess with the tune and the setup. Certainly recommend messing with the cambers, ranging from 1.5 up to 2 on the rear, changing the downforce. You could increase the downforce. I certainly wouldn't recommend decreasing the downforce, but certainly a little bit to be able to mess with to try and change that setup a little bit to work towards your favour. So thanks for joining once again, and until next time, ciao for now. So I just wanted to add a small section at the end of the video, just to show you, having made just a few adjustments to the downforce, and I've not changed anything else. It just really benefits the whole lap, I think. As much as you can see in numerous areas that the car really is suffering from the amount of drag on the car, going through the corners there's a massive difference in speed that you're able to carry. You can see just as we come over the rise, the Ghost just catching up. Again, just losing him midway through the corner, and as we inch out along this start, well, not the start finish straight, but along the main straight, you can see obviously he takes over again, and again we'll carry more speed through the corner again. And I know I get a good run out of this corner as my Ghost, so it's fairly even through this section, but you will certainly see as you follow it through the rest of the lap just how much can be gained from adding that little bit more downforce, maybe just changing the setup a tiny bit from what I managed to set my 133.2. I really do think adding a tiny bit more downforce might benefit the whole lap, really. As you'll no doubt see, the main gain really comes through this last corner, where I do stay in third. The Ghost actually drops down to second here, but you can see there's a massive catch up through that section, plenty of time to have been gained. But that's it for now, guys, and until next time, ciao for now, again.